Okay, so hi guys. Today I am going to show you guys a quick run through of how to do a thesis statement, and I'm going to use the Mongols DBQ as my example. So you should have done the Mongols DBQ a while back. As a reminder, our prompt was, were the Mongols a group of conquering barbarians or unifiers who paved the way for the modern world? Our thesis format is always counter-argument, however, evidence, therefore, your argument. So the things that are underlined are going to be the stuff that you fill in. So you're going to fill in the counter-argument, the evidence, and the argument, and then the however and the therefore usually stays the same. So for the first example I'm going to argue that the Mongols were unifiers. So in my counter argument, I have to say the opposite of that. I have to say that the Mongols were barbarians. So I'll give you an example. We can say that the Mongols were thought of as barbarians because of the destruction they brought. Okay, so that's my counter argument. However, so when you say however, you're usually contradicting what you previously said. However, the Mongols increased cultural exchange, commercial development, and security along trade routes. Okay, so this is my evidence, and I'll show you guys where I got my evidence from. So for increasing the cultural exchange, we go to document 2, we see that the Mongols gradually blended in with the local society, so they adopted their cultures. For the commercial development is another fancy word for saying economic development. So they built canals to improve transportation, agricultural production. Can always use that they used tax-free zones. The cities that were in the tax-free zones prospered. We can also use document 4 to say that they increased security. How Ibn Battuta describes how 2 horses left during the night, but then they were returned to them 20 days later. And document 8 also touches on this security along the trade routes, that a man might have traveled with a gold platter upon his head without suffering the least violence from anyone. So that goes into the increased security. So now I'm going to put my main argument. Therefore, the Mongols were unifiers who brought prosperity to the regions they governed. Okay, so the way you would do your thesis statement is you would basically erase this, squish it all together, and this is what your full thesis statement should look like. The Mongols were thought of as barbarians because of the destruction they brought. However, the Mongols increased cultural exchange, commercial development, and security along trade routes. Therefore, the Mongols were unifiers who brought prosperity to the regions they governed. Straightforward. Let me give you another example. This time I'm arguing for the Mongols being barbarians. So if I'm arguing that the Mongols were conquering barbarians, my counter argument needs to say the opposite of that. So an example of this would be the Mongol Empire was known to have brought prosperity to the regions it governed. Okay, now I'm putting my evidence. However, the Mongols destroyed towns, slaughtered the local population, and spread disease. Okay, and I'll show you where I got my evidence from. So if we look at document 3, we see that they're destroying this Russian city. They're literally setting it on fire. If we look at document 5, it talks about how the Mongol policies were akin to genocide because they would slaughter like almost half the population. And then if we look at document 7, we see the spread of the Black Plague is very much aligned to the trade routes that the Mongols reestablished. So that shows how they spread disease. Now let me make my argument. Therefore, the Mongols were a group of conquering barbarians who brought destruction wherever they went. Okay, now to put it all together to form one cohesive thesis statement. So this would be the thesis statement. The Mongol Empire was known to have brought prosperity to the regions it governed. However, the Mongols destroyed towns, slaughtered the local population, and spread disease. Therefore, the Mongols were a group of conquering barbarians who brought destruction wherever they went. So these are just two examples of how you would do a thesis statement in response to this DBQ. I would always recommend like having 3 pieces of evidence. You don't have to, but the more the better. If you have 2 solid pieces of evidence and then 1 like not so solid piece of evidence, maybe you're a little bit iffy on, focus on the 2 that you're very positive that you have, because it's better to do those well than to do all of them kind of half-heartedly. Okay, so I hope this helped you. Hope it refreshed your mind on how to do a thesis statement, and hope your thesis statements turn out very beautiful and very cohesive.